What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. I am so sorry I have been missing for a while. I had some health issues to attend, but now it is completely out of the way and I'm so glad to come back and start filming again. So we had a great party. Unfortunately, there were some casualties. So we had these speakers checked out by the professionals and they're all in the perfect working condition. However, the enclosures are completely busted. So I thought this will be a great learning opportunity to do some research and improve the speakers in performance and of course the look. I'm going to begin my disassembly by removing the speaker stuffing, which is this white polyfill, and disconnecting the speaker wires. Although there are only several wires here, I still prefer to mark them down so I don't forget which is which when putting everything back together. Once everything is disconnected, I begin to remove the screws that hold the main woofer, the tweeter, and the back panel to the enclosure. To retain the design sound quality, I'm going to measure the size of the enclosure and build a new one very close to the internal volume of the original one. For these speakers, I'm going to use 3/4 inch Baltic birch plywood. I have watched many videos of people much more knowledgeable in sound engineering than I am, testing different materials, and Baltic birch is consistently one of the top choices. I'm going to need 4 panels to make a main box, 1 panel for the back, and 2 panels for the front that I'm going to glue together to replicate the thickness of the original front. Of course, I'm going to do it for the both speakers. However, for the sake of keeping this video a decent length, I'm going to demonstrate only one. Once all panels are cut, I'm going to use the router table to create rabbets on the edges of the box so the front and the back panels can be dropped in flush with the box for the better aesthetics and quality of the glue up. To build the main box, I'm going to line up panels one by one, secure them with the masking tape. Then I'm going to flip them over and apply a good amount of wood glue with the several drops of CA glue for a quick initial hold while the wood glue dries, creating a permanent bond. While boxes are getting dry, I'm going to make the front panels now. To do that, I will drop the first half into the box, apply a good amount of wood glue and press the face panel on top. To ensure the good bond, I'm going to flip the box and use a nail gun with brad nails to secure 2 pieces together. Next morning, the wood glue should be all dry. It is time to remove all pieces of masking tape. After removal, I will use my orbital sander with a 150 grit disc to clean up the box. While I was cutting the main front panel, I purposely cut a 1/8 of an inch bigger on each side to compensate for any potential movement while glue up. To clean up the excess, I'm going to run it on my router table with the flush trim bit. When working with plywood, straight cut trim bits can cause a tear out. I highly recommend using a carbide spiral bits in this case. To give the speakers a little bit more character, I decided to give the front panels 20-degree chamfer to create an exposed plywood look. Baltic birch has no voids between the layers. It looks very good exposed when it's stained and finished. Now it is time to cut the holes for the woofer and the tweeter. Since I don't have big enough hole saw, I'm just going to outline the original holes on the panel and use my Forstner bit to remove most of the material, then follow up with the jigsaw to cut the rest of the holes. As always, I'll cut a little less, then finish trimming with the flush trim bit on a router table. In the original speaker, tweeter was recessed. To replicate that, I have cut a piece from the old panel to serve as a template to draw an outline. Then, I used the knife to score along the line to prevent the tear out and used my hand router with the compression bead to create the recess, deep enough for the tweeter to be flush with the surface. To get rid of any rough edges and the burr marks, I'm going to sand it smooth with my orbital sander using a 150 grit disc. To To make it a little bit more special, I'm gonna use my laser to engrave the initials of the person who the speakers belong to. To enhance the look of my design, I'm going to use my very faint stain in a provincial color for the face of the speaker, while the rest of the enclosure I'm going to paint flat black. While stain penetrates the wood, paint does not, therefore multiple coats are required for the full solid coverage. While the paint and the stain gets dry, I begin work on the back panel. Using the old one as a template, I created an outline of the area that needs to be cut out. I was lucky this time and had an appropriate Forstner bit size to cut out the porthole. I also used it to cut an initial hole to allow me to use jigsaw for a final cut of the main panel. Only things that were left to be cut are the holes for the threaded inserts, before moving on to the sanding whole panel and painting it flat black to match the rest of the enclosure. To protect the paint and the stain, I applied several coats of matte polyurethane. I chose matte one because anything else would create slight sheen, which will reflect the light from the computer monitor and be kinda distracting when you are trying to focus on making music. When everything is dry, typically the next day, it is time to glue the front panel to the main box. I used the wood glue in the previously cut rabbets to join them together and the construction adhesive on the inside to be sure that the enclosure is sealed 100%. After doing some research on good quality enclosure stuffing, amongst few expensive choices of acoustic foam, I came across an article that wrote about using a rock wool insulation as an excellent choice. And since I had an open bag left over after renovations, it was no-brainer to give it a shot. To install the back panel, I did the same glue up as the front, only in reverse, applying construction adhesive to the edge first and the wood glue inside of the rabbet second. After inserting the panel, I run my finger on the inside of the corners to spread the adhesive evenly to make sure it has a good seal. When it comes to installing threaded inserts, I like to apply a drop of CA glue to the outside threads to make sure they are locked to the wood and won't come out if the back panel needs to be removed for some reason in future. At last, it is a home stretch. First, I reinstalled the crossover board, pulled the wires through and connected the tweeter and screwed it in place. However, before installing the woofer, I attached a 1/4-inch foam gasket to the edge of the speaker to isolate it from the enclosure. Now the only thing is left is to test them out. Final result is a beautiful sound and a very high praise from the owner, to whom these studio monitors carry a lot of sentimental value. It has been a great learning experience for me and I'm glad I'm able to share it with you guys. Thank you for watching and please consider subscribing if you would like to follow me on more of these unique building experiments.